Hello, neighbors. Welcome back to the second episode of Voices of Union County Citizen News Report. I am Alexis, and I will be your host on this adventure today. First, I would like to start with a disclaimer and explanation to explain who I am and why I'm even doing this. For the last year, I have been living off my own savings and working around the clock, more than any full-time job I've ever had, aside from being a mother, because it is evident that this world that we've created here in the United States and globally has been hijacked by those who wish to subvert our will to appease their own. And I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with it at all. And I see that the way that they do it is through manipulation, using the big, lovely hearts of people to corral them into doing their bidding by using their emotions to get them to, for the words used most often, to recruit them into their camp. But it turns out that the things that they use to recruit people's big, warm, fuzzy hearts aren't actually the agenda. They are just the tools for recruitment. Okay? The agendas are far from warm and fuzzy and heartfelt. And they keep people in this state of being manipulated by squashing information so that they can educate themselves. Perhaps you care about an issue, but there could be 3 different ways to go about solving that issue. But they don't want you to discuss amongst yourselves to discover ways to solve those problems together. They want to tell you how to solve that issue so that you will be recruited into their camp and support their agenda. And I'm not okay with this. I have learned over my life's work of intense studies and self-experimentation of behavior, of human behavior on the personal, interpersonal, group, and now national and global levels. I have learned that speaking up and telling the truth is enough to defeat the illusions cast by those who wish to subvert your will. By simply telling the truth, you can wake people up to those illusions very quickly. And I've learned that over my life. And now I see that the world is in the state that it's in because of a lack of information, censorship, the idea of the technocracy. You're not smart enough to think for yourself, but we have experts that can do that thinking for you, so everything will be fine. No, it's not fine. Look at this world, and look how divided we are. We're so divided because we don't have information. We're not talking to each other on various sides of issues to hear the information from each other, because if we did do that, then we would see that we're all on the same side. We're all on Team Humanity. Unless, of course, you're in service to self. And if that's the case, then your drive is to take power and wealth from others to keep it for yourself, not to receive it for your own merit, not to receive power from others wanting to give it to you based on the merit of your true actions, but to lie and manipulate them to take it from them. And I am not okay with that. I'm not. I'm a patriot. I am loyal to this country. But before I'm loyal to anything, I am loyal to God. And God created our souls for a reason. And I am not about to let somebody who is willing to manipulate, lie, and deceive in order to take my God-given energy without my consent. I'm not here for that. I came here to have a human experience and discover the beauty of this journey that God granted us. I am not here to allow someone that's self-serving to decide how that journey is going to go. So, while this has been a heavy introduction, I just want to clarify my purpose and what I'm doing here. I realize now that we do not have information here in Union County, and we need it. And I see that those that are in positions of power are very upset by the free speech of the citizens, by the idea that the citizens are now getting together to discuss things themselves and to make plans themselves outside of the technocracy that we have been handed. I see them very upset. So this is a dangerous position to be in, to be willing to stand up. But I see that our individual, our nation, and our world is under attack. And I'm willing to stand up for this fight. So that's what I'm doing. I am asking that any citizens here in Union County that are supportive of this endeavor to please help support. I will be setting up a Patreon account because honestly, I came back home to Blairsville when the world went crazy thinking that I could relaunch my piano teaching business. So actually, I asked God, what do I do? And I was told to come back home, and I did. But I just assumed that my piano business would open up and everything would be just back to normal for that. And it's become apparent to me that that is not what I've been called to do. As I have not had to worry about my actions being profitable. It's an amazing thing to be able to live a couple of years without having to worry about your actions being profitable. I discovered my true calling is this: my inquisitive nature, my ability to teach, my fierce defending of the sovereignty of our very souls. This is what I've been called to do. So now, after a year of doing this beyond full time, simply because I've been called to do it, my savings has run out, or it's about to be, and I would like for this to continue to be my full-time job. So I am asking for support in that way, but I will tell you that this is so important to me that I have been willing to do this around the clock for free for a very important reason, because the truth will set you free. The truth will set us free. And you've got to be willing to hear the truth. You've got to be willing to tell the truth. You've got to be willing to learn how to hear the deceptions and the manipulations and to no longer be lulled to sleep by them. And now that I've said my piece, in this week's broadcast, we will be discussing notable happenings both locally and in the state. Fair Fight, a political group promoted by Communist Party USA, possibly paying recruited members to move into Union County to swing our elections. Recent pitfalls of Kemp's taxpayer-funded deal with Rivian. And we'll be discussing sexually explicit books located in the children's section of our libraries, our public libraries, where I interview one of the parents working to remove an extremely graphic book on the shelves now. And, of course, we'll end the show with my favorite segment, What's Blooming Union County, where I'll introduce you to one of our amazing local plants and teach you how to identify it and how it's been used for food and medicine. But before we get into all of that, I'd like to highlight some of our local businesses and events. Blairsville Cinema is showing 2,000 Mules here on the big screen through May 25th. And the theater has been so packed that they actually had to switch rooms on Sunday because they oversold the showing. If you haven't seen it yet, please be sure to do so. It's very, very important information, and I'm grateful that they are hosting the movie viewing for us. I do suggest bringing a friend because it gets fairly emotional, even when you know what to expect. On May 28th, the Tea Party Patriots are hosting a town hall meeting to discuss multifamily housing issues here in Union County. They'll have guest speakers like Dr. Dan there to share their information and answer any questions that you might have. They'll also be set up to get signatures for the petition for a multi-commissioner board, so be sure to stop by if you'd like to sign it or to speak with them about it. After a brief family vacation, 7M Family Farms is back and bringing us the good farm food. They're currently taking bulk orders for canning and are asking customers to visit them online to order there. Also, if you've not had lunch at their cafe, the food is like artwork for your taste buds. Seriously, it's just incredible. And Lessons with Alexis, that's me, is finally open and hosting plant walks, teaching local plant ID and how the plants have been used. Plant walks are $40 per person with a $10 carpooling discount because the property has limited parking available. Plant walks are available this Saturday, May 28th from 3 to 4 p.m. and 6 to 7 p.m., with another plant walk specifically for the elderly and those with limited mobility from 5 to 6 p.m. Visit lessonswithalexis.com to register or to check the upcoming schedule. Let's begin with notable happenings on the local level. Now, I'm not saying I'm magic, but last week I mentioned that I was voting for Candace Taylor because I like to look candidates in the eyes and meet them in person before they get my vote. And Perdue had yet to make his way to Union County. Well, just days after that broadcast went out, Perdue announced he was coming to visit us. Now, I'm not even going to pretend that he watched my show, but I do love how things happen when I just say them out loud. It's fun for me. Anyway, yes, Perdue visited us at the GOP meeting last Saturday, and I did like hearing everything he was saying. I'm still on Team Candace, but at least I know him better if it turns out he wins the primary. Latham Sadler, running for U.S. Senate, also came to the GOP meeting last Saturday, and I definitely liked hearing what he had to say. In fact, he said a phrase that I loved so much that I wrote it down, and I'm going to add it to my list of favorites. Dignity, not dependency. That's it. 3 words, and they're so very meaningful. Dignity, not dependency. Anyway, I did film Latham Sadler, and I have that uploaded here on the channel if you'd like to see what he has to say as a candidate for U.S. Senate. And it seems our constitutional rights are yet again being trampled by those who swore oaths to protect them. The Tea Party Patriots were in the parking lot at the courthouse getting signatures for their petition when a woman from the tax office came out with a deputy to tell them that they had to leave. It turns out they did not have to leave, as it's their right to be there, and they weren't causing a nuisance. When they continued to get signatures there, Commissioner Paris himself came out to post signs on the property saying no loitering, parking for election and courthouse business only. Of course, no arrests or removals were made when Sheriff Mac Mason came by to tell them it's not helping their cause to be there, because it's not illegal activity and it warrants no harassment of the citizens. We the people. It's a thing. And those who swore oaths to support the constitutions need to do more to actually protect the constitutions than they do to protect their own status quo. We are paying attention now. Interestingly, the courthouse had no issue in 2020 when people came from outside of our community to take up the entire front parking lot of the courthouse to protest for BLM. Speaking of the commissioner, Sole Commissioner Paris has proclaimed May 12th, 2022 to be Patrick Malone Day. For those who don't know, Patrick Malone is the radio personality representing the conservative voice on our local station here. If you listened to the interview with Doy Lively in my last episode, where he describes everything he went through to get that toxic landfill water removed from our drinking water supply, Patrick Malone is the man who interviewed and ridiculed him for speaking up for the citizens' concerns. He's also the one who referred to the citizens redressing their government over concerns regarding the use of T-Splost funds as the circus. When asked why he would continually talk about, ridicule, and speculate the motivations of the citizens at the meetings without even once attempting to ask them a question, as he would typically sit only a few seats away from them at every meeting and wouldn't even have had to raise his voice to ask them a question rather than speculate, he repeatedly stated it was because he didn't know what their issue was. He hasn't been seen at a meeting since being asked, so there's been no chance for a follow-up on that. But in any case, congratulations to Patrick Malone for finally having a day proclaimed in his honor. And I personally want to thank him for inspiring me to create this new show to ensure the people of this county have a place where their voices can be heard without ridicule. We've had an announcement in the paper that's got local citizens concerned. It was reported in the North Georgia News this week that there will be an airport expansion. They will be expanding the runway, it appears. Reading from the newspaper, it says the council approved a Georgia Department of Transportation contract to conduct a planning study and threshold analysis at the Blairsville Municipal Airport with a goal of ultimately providing more room for pilots to land aircraft. To accomplish this goal, the city said moving power poles and acquiring land may be needed after the study and analysis is completed. People are concerned about the acquiring of that land and where that land will be. Continuing on reading the article, it says, that being said, the city is hoping to only require a small number of land purchases from surrounding property owners if such purchases are deemed necessary. To minimize the potential for such a disturbance, the area around the airport will first be considered for minor renovations, such as the aforementioned moving of power poles or removal of potentially obstructive trees. The cost of the planning study and threshold analysis is $143,095.12 to be federally funded at 100%. For now, preparations are underway for an anticipated uptick in aircraft activity at the airport. We gave the terminal a big scrub down from top to bottom to make sure we're ready for the summer crowds coming in, airport manager Aaron Mannheim said. We've got a few maintenance things that've got to be taken care of, and by the end of May, we should be really rolling along. Now, when that was brought to my attention by the conversations of our neighbors, I went to the newspaper to find that article and instead found one in the exact same newspaper, this week's paper, that seems to go right hand in hand with it. The Tennessee Valley Authority accelerates nation's decarbonization efforts, fuels a clean energy economy. So there is a long article announcing things such as a $2 billion new transmission infrastructure investments through 2025 to build the energy system of the future and improve grid capabilities. Now, it goes on, but essentially the article is discussing billions and billions and billions of dollars being put towards turning the North Georgia mountains into a clean energy location. The reason this concerns me is because when I saw that Stacey Abrams was running unopposed, I went and looked at some things, and I discovered some things that were quite concerning. For one, I was taken to the CPUSA, that would be the I'm not going to say the word because I don't want to be censored, but the Commie Party, USA.com, CPUSA.com, there is a long article talking about how the farmers in Georgia need the CP to help them, to hear them and hear their concerns. It's this long, very propaganda-y, manipulative, heartstrings pulling article. But there is one tiny blip in the article that explains the actual agenda, which is to turn North Georgia, rural areas in Georgia, into smart cities and clean energy tech. They specifically say to bring in the Green New Deal. And I'm just saying, it's very interesting that all those people are all on the same agenda. Something to pay attention to. And this leads me into another issue affecting residents of Union County. A local resident came to me this week to tell me his concerns over the Blairsville City Council receiving state grants to do public works, specifically sewage, out in county property, not in the city limits. His concern is regarding the purpose of this and if it's involved with plans for apartments or other multifamily housing plans yet unknown to the residents of the county. He says the real issue is that if you aren't living in the city limits, you have no say over what is happening in the county, regardless of the project happening outside of city limits. Who would a resident living near this expanded public works redress their concerns to? To the county? Or will the county direct you to the city? And then will the city say you aren't a resident of the city? It's all a big question, and it's something to make note of for sure. And it's very similar to the situation that we learned about in last week's segment about the city voting to dump landfill leachate water into the drinking supply of the residents of Union County. When major decisions affecting the lives and property of 20,000 people, when major decisions are affecting this many people and only the 600 people that live within the tight parameters of the city get to vote on it, it's time to stop and take a look at things. The Chamber of Commerce is also located within the city of Blairsville. Just something to tuck into your hat there. There's been some upset among the community with the recent announcement of the tech school parking lot being closed off to the public for the viewing of 4th of July fireworks, with tickets for parking being sold for $50 each. Parking at the tech school for the viewing of the fireworks display has been a family tradition held by many Union County residents. People are upset that it's being taken away from them and that the Chamber of Commerce is using taxpayer-funded property to charge an enormous price for entry. Contact Ashley Miller with the Chamber of Commerce for more information or to have your voice be heard on this matter. Now, a man has reported in a local social media group that Stacey Abrams' organization Fair Fight has paid him to move to Union County to vote Democrat in the upcoming elections. When confronted about this, he began talking about a homeless shelter he'll be opening soon in Blairsville. Now, is he just trolling us, or has this man really been paid to move here to vote contrary to the will of the residents? Residents are now wondering, if this is true, is this shelter involved with Fair Fight and possibly created as a way to unnaturally influence voting populations here in Union County? Also, it should be noted that Fair Fight is heavily supported by CP USA. Definitely need to pay attention. So, my fellow patriots, is this something we need to keep an eye on? I think it's something we should keep an eye on. And this leads me right into notable happenings in the state of Georgia. Remember how I read those long sample ballots in last week's report? Remember how I pointed out that Stacey Abrams was running unopposed, which essentially means there's no choice by the people for the people? Well, this week we'll see why. George Soros has donated over $1 million to Stacey Abrams, but by law, she can't receive those funds unless she wins the nomination, which explains why she ran unopposed. We'll start to see what she does with that money immediately following the primary election, and I hope it's not involving Fair Fight in Union County. Interestingly, Abrams is the candidate Soros is putting the most money behind. Why is he so invested in Georgia? Are you aware of what happens when George Soros pumps money into a region? I invite you to do a little research on the after effects of his attention in political and economic affairs. And speaking of economic affairs, an electric car company, Rivian, of which Soros is a major investor, went into business with the state of Georgia recently through an unprecedented taxpayer-funded deal with Governor Kemp. Unfortunately, the car manufacturing plant is having severe supply issues and are not even performing 1/16th of their projected production rates. Ford has completely pulled their stocks from Rivian, causing both Rivian and Ford stocks to plummet. Meanwhile, residents of the location are very upset about the car manufacturing plant disturbing their rural landscape and way of life. A website, No to Rivian, with the number 2, notorivian.org, reads, Rivian wants to build a gigantic electric truck auto assembly plant in Morgan and Walton counties adjacent to Newton and Jasper counties that will forever destroy our small towns, rural life, and natural environment. Rivian has already gotten options through the Joint Development Authority on thousands of acres of rural land just outside our small towns of Madison, Rutledge, and Social Circle, and is applying to rezone for industrial use. They are seeking waiver of environmental impact studies before rezoning in order to circumvent environmental constraints until too late to object. Save our small towns, rural life, and natural environment. Make your views known immediately. Act now. Say no to Rivian. Georgia towns, the Rivian plant and inevitable surrounding growth will destroy our rural life and turn us into part of the megalopolis, did I say that right, known as Atlanta. It too was once a wonderful town in which to live. So it's coming down to the will of the people versus the will of the establishment politicians, just like I mentioned at the beginning of this episode. Power is to be granted by merit, not by force. This country was meant to be built by the will of the people, and our current situation is not a reflection of that in any way. On that note, my Democrat brothers and sisters, please take a look at this list of candidates. If you voted for any of these people, you voted for candidates promoted and supported by the CPUSA. You did. You don't believe me? Visit their website at cpusa.org and do a search for any candidates, political organizations, or political platforms that you support. And you'll see that most, if not all, of the platforms pushed by the people you voted for are the same platforms and politicians backed by the C party. If you already knew that, well, at least you know you stand with communism. But if you didn't realize that, it's okay. The conservatives understand. We have had years to grasp the fact that our establishment politicians do not work for us. We have had years to figure out that they don't support the will of the people. Watching them run unopposed, your candidates running unopposed. And it can be scary to wake up, but when you do, you find that we are all on the same side. We're all on Team Human, and we just have gotten derailed by listening to people that do not have our best interests in mind. And if you are hearing what I'm saying, and you actually go and look for yourself, you've got to own what it is that you've been supporting. You have to. You've got to own it and recognize the people that you have fought against. Self-reflection. It's really hard. That's why a lot of people don't do it. But you're always rewarded in the end. So own what's happened here and then learn discernment. And I can tell you that your patriot brothers and sisters are here for you. And we understand. You see us standing up to our own establishment, GOP planted people. We've been doing it for a while, and we understand. We get it. And we'll be here for you to help teach you discernment, because we've had years to figure it out too. So we understand, unless you are aware of what you've been supporting and you're just totally fine with it. In that case, we're not here for that. Okay. Now, before we get into today's headline story, I'd like to announce Lessons with Alexis has openings in a Tiny Tots Music 101 class. This is a true music education class for children 2 to 5, and will have students learning note values and playing actual sheet music on real instruments. There are also openings in 2 piano classes for children 6 to 12. Visit lessonswithalexis.com for more information. And if you appreciate and support my work here on Voices of Union County, Georgia, please keep in mind that I am looking for a job. And I would truly love it if the people of Union County would hire me as your citizen reporter. I have a link to paypal.me and Venmo in the description section below this video. I will be working on getting a Patreon account running soon as well. And I will truly appreciate any support you'd contribute to my work. I would also appreciate any prayers sent my way for my safety and ability to continue on with this good fight, because it is, it's an interesting place. It's an interesting place to be, but I've been called to it, and here we are. Okay, and now for our headline story of the week. Parents have discovered sexually explicit children's books at both the Hiawassee and Blairsville public libraries. I decided to do a little digging and found an article of the 10 most challenged books in 2022. And to my surprise, I found 7 of those 10 books in rotation at our local libraries. These books are found in the juvenile and young adult sections of the library. Now, keep in mind that young adult is primarily written for the age group of 12 to 18 years old. And 12-year-olds are very young minors. Keep that in mind. And know that your 12-year-old could very easily check out any of these books right now at our libraries. In fact, nothing is stopping the heavy-reading 10-year-old looking for more substantial novels from picking one of these books up off the shelf in the young readers section of the library. Now, I am not about banning books, but I am really concerned about grown adults writing sexually explicit content for children. There's got to be a line. And also, parents, we need to be aware of what's going on. And we need to be aware that our library libraries, this is Pines, so it covers the region. They are either unaware or don't care. So it's up to us. Okay, so Forever for a Year. That's one book I found. It's so sexually explicit that it's basically unreadable and depicts descriptions of minors engaged in sexual acts throughout the book. Jack of Hearts and Other Parts is the same, but is basically an entire book about minors and sex. That's what it's about. Lawn Boy is a little bit less overt, but it still repeatedly describes a sex act between 2 10-year-old little boys in detail. And that one is especially concerning to me because my child wants to start his own lawn business one day and would likely be drawn to that book, only to be forever changed by the repeated descriptions of the sex act between 2 10-year-old minors, little boys. The Breakaways is also about 10-year-olds, and it's basically filled with trans and LGBT coming-of-age conversation, but it's unique in that it's a graphic novel and shows actual images of children in bed together. The Nerdy and the Dirty is about a sex-obsessed 16-year-old girl and describes again and again throughout the book sex acts she engages in. Look, if I'm disturbing you by saying these things over and over again, just understand, good. I'm glad. I'm glad you're disturbed by this. Let's do something about it. And while, yes, some people do think that children need a place to explore their questions about sexuality, imagine being a student in a school with an adult predator. Imagine how easily an adult could groom and influence a child with reading material like this. Seriously, we need to be looking out for our children. But the truly disturbing book on the shelves of our library, and the one found by two separate parents at two of our Pine Region libraries, is the book It's Perfectly Normal. This book actually instructs children with pictures on how to perform various sex acts on themselves and others. This book actually shows cartoon imagery of children performing sex acts on each other. It's called child pornography, and it's illegal. And one courageous group of homeschooling parents decided to do something about it. So tell me the story about, was it your wife that found books at the Hiawassee Library?
Yes. My wife didn't find the books. She heard that they were at the Hiawassee Library, and they had nude images of children participating in sex acts with each other. And so a couple moms from our homeschool group went to the library's meeting, and they weren't allowed to speak, and they were asked to leave. And they said, my wife had asked them, is this okay for you to have this in here? And they said, well, maybe we'll consider moving it to the adult section. And she said, it shouldn't be in here at all. Adults and children should not look at naked images of children in sex acts. And the gentleman that runs the board said, well, we don't judge people based off their sexual preference here. And that was the end of it.
And that's the man that runs is that the man that runs the library for the region?
The mountain region of the library, yeah. Heath is his name.
Right.
I can't remember his last name.
Is it Lee?
Yeah, Heath Lee. That's what it is. Heath Lee, he runs the mountain region of the library, and he's completely accepting and willing to keep the books with the naked kids participating in sex acts in all the libraries up here.
Does your wife have, is she... Well, the group that she's with, are they planning on continuing further to get those books removed?
Yeah, well, it looks like it might actually be legislated illegal to have pictures of naked kids in sex acts in libraries in the state of Georgia.
Isn't it already illegal?
You would hope so, yeah. But so their plan is if he doesn't remove it, then we're just going to continue to go and escalate. And where we're at now is all the mothers went, and so next we're trying to round up the fathers to go, because we have to unequivocally unite and say we won't accept this in our area, or else it won't go away.
Exactly. All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Now, I know all of this feels uncomfortable. It's easier to ignore all of these problems and let them fester while you entertain yourself with other lighter, shinier things. But the only reason we're being faced with issues that have grown so wildly out of control is because we have been ignoring them for so very long. We must pay attention. We must be diligent, and we must stand up together to create the world we are actually proud of. Learn discernment. Learn to read the motivations behind the slippery words of politicians. Learn to distinguish those who are in service to self from those who are standing up for your rights of liberty and freedom. Personal responsibility is the key to creating a healthier world, and it's definitely time for that. Okay, we've had a lot of heavy information to cover in this episode 2 of the People's News Report. I think it's time to lighten things up a bit with what's blooming Union County. Today, I'd like to introduce you to the Oxeye Daisy. I know you're seeing these sweet little friends popping up all over the mountainside this week. And did you know this flowering friend is a treasured medicine and edible? It is. But first, let me remind you that I am neither a doctor nor a medical professional, and for all you know, I could be a total moron. So don't ever eat something just because I tell you to do it. Take your time to get to know the plant first. Do your research, and be sure it isn't something you're allergic to. With that being said, I do eat this pretty flower. I mix a little powdered sugar and flour, and I batter them along with red clover blossoms, and I fry them up and I eat them for breakfast, and they are delicious. But let's talk about how to identify the plant. Okay, I am going to read a short excerpt from the book, The Lost Book of Herbal Remedies by Nicole Appelian. I hope I said her name right. PhD. And Claude Davis. Now, this is one of my go-to books. I'm embarrassed because out of my huge library of books about plants, and I mean, I have historical books, I've got all the books, but this book that was advertised to me on Facebook is like my go-to resource, and that's so funny, but I definitely recommend this book. Anyway, Nicole says, Oxeye Daisy is easily recognized by its white ray flowers with yellow center florets. Each erect plant grows 1 to 3 feet tall from well-developed shallow rhizomes. You'll often find them in groupings spread by the reach of its rhizome underground. The leaves are long, lobed, irregular, alternate, and coarsely toothed. Leaves become progressively smaller as you go up the stem. Each stem holds one flower that blooms from May to October. It's often confused with Shasta daisy, which is also edible but is much taller. Okay, so edible use, people eat the leaves, the young shoots, the flowers, and the roots, the whole plant. People eat them. Young shoots and leaves are good chopped and added to salads. Now, when they're young, it's before it shoots up the flower and the stalk. So they're just a little clump of these frilly little leaves. And they, generally speaking, plants that are in the young sprouting stage like that are going to have a more mild taste and a better texture. The older they get, they tend to get a little more bitter or more tough. So young shoots and leaves, people chop them up, add them to salads, and the flavor is strong, so they are used sparingly in a salad. The pungent flavor, like I said, increases as they get older, so the older leaves are better cooked, and then you change the water during cooking like you would with greens. They're also good added to soups and stews. And the roots can be eaten raw and are best in the springtime. For medicinal uses, the entire above ground part, aerial part, is medicinal, but the flowers are the most potent. The plant has been used as an anti-inflammatory, antispasmodic, a diuretic, and a tonic. It's used to induce sweating, relieve coughs, and heal wounds. People use it for chest congestion and coughing. They use it to treat asthma. They use it as a tonic, a mild tonic for the body to soothe irritation and inflammation inside the body. They use it for wounds, bruises, rashes, fungal infections, and other skin diseases by using it topically on the skin. They use it for eye infections, for detoxifying the body, as a diuretic, and it's also known to be used as an insecticide and flea control. People dry the flower heads, pound them up, or grind them into a powder, and they use it as a flea powder. So that's fun. It's such a useful plant, and we have it everywhere. But you can also just make tea out of it. People do that. Again, I like to batter them up with my red clover blossoms, and I eat them, and it's delicious. But now you've got two friends. You've got two new friends. You've got the violets and you've got the Oxeye daisies. So I hope when you're out walking around and you see these new friends, you go, hey, I know you and I know what your purpose is. That's always fun. It's really fun to open your eyes to the world around you. I mean, I am of the opinion that the Garden of Eden didn't leave us. We left it and just didn't have eyes to see. So let's open our eyes and be so grateful in the incredible abundance that is all around us. We live in such a beautiful place. We start getting bogged down by paying attention to difficult things. You can always go outside here and look at a flower. So I hope that helped. And with that, I am signing out. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe, click like, and support this channel. And I'll be here next week. Until then, I'll see you around town, neighbors.